It's almost like a prison cell down here, but it's warm. I'm in my basement of doom, working on Sean's Talisman. And in case you're wondering, how can you go about if you haven't figured out what kind of string grooves to put on a bow? How do you tiller it? Well, it's as simple as taking, I don't know where mine is, it's somewhere around here, my tillering string. I've got a tillering string that has leather pockets on it that would just like go over here. And you can certainly make them out of rawhide or whatever you do. Get the rawhide wet. Be elegant. If you make the same style of bow with the same dimensions of tips, take some rawhide strip, thick, strong one, get it wet, put it over here with the ties for the string, put it under some pressure and it'll kind of form fit. But yeah, you don't need to have string grooves to tiller a bow. Anyway, these things are just all details. I'm still at the 80 grit sandpaper stage, so it's getting refined, but it's not refined like once I start hitting like 180 and 220 and stuff like that. But there's a good, oh yeah. You see how I actually put round grooves in these? As long as I'm not eliminating this thickness, then you've got some leeway to hollow it out. I think that detail looks really cool. Let me figure out the lighting. Be patient. There we go. You can see the groove in there. Oh, you can remove stuff in the middle. It's like an I-beam. Now, if this was heavy, he wants it 45 pounds at 28 inches. If you wanted it 60 pounds, you're going to start seeing a little bend in these things, which is fine. Probably the original ones had a little bit of bend. They were probably not super stiff if you've seen pictures of the originals, but it's a good way to minimize weight from the tips, because stiffness is more effective by raising this than it is making these wider. And so you can kind of see you get more traction from making it really narrow, but you start deepening it, it's more effective as a stiffening thing. Again, kind of I-beams. But making these, it's all detail work. You can see the back is nice and rounded up here. 10-inch diameter sanding block. And then I'm starting to get into the detail of the handle now. Could leave it just straight, which would be fine. I mean, straight. I've got 4 heels on this. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I'm thinking about rounding it, having it come up, then around, and then exaggerating the handle go like this, back into another round. And the reason I don't always hardly ever go into asymmetrical handles where it would be shaped like your standard longbow, it's kind of rounded and then it dives down and then a scallop, is because you can keep the bow even limb stiffness wise by rotating it. This is the top limb. Now this is the top limb. I'm stringing it like this, then after a while I string it like this, rotating it like your tires on your automobile. Sanding blocks are the key. Now I'm going to demonstrate it on this shaving bench, but I'm not going to use any sandpaper because I've already did this. Sanding block I use for this, and the reason I don't like the dumbhead bench where you're pushing down to hold it is I can work off the bench. I can clamp it down with my Jorgensen, and then I can work from here. I can work off it from here. And so I'm not one to say this is more superior than others, but this style of bench with a clamp where you can lock it and you can work standing up all in every possible direction. You could hang like Barnabas Collins from your feet and work on it without having to push down that dumbhead lever. This is superior. But anyway, this is the sanding block I was using. It's a bolt for my big ash crossbow. But the nice thing about this is pay particular attention when you're, put my glasses down here, when you're working lengthwise of sanding, you don't want to run off to each side. I can do it like this, I can hold it right here, keeping it centered. Again, standing up and not being bound by pushing that lever down. So I'm going perfectly lengthwise. And a lot of this is, I'm going to think through this problem and I'm going to come up with some precise way to do it. Just like I haven't decided what kind of knocks to put on it, so I'm not going to, and I'm going to tiller it by just having leather rawhide pockets at either end of the string. Okay, so in this case, a long sanding block keeps it nice and parallel, and plus I've got the tip of the bow, keep that going. The next sanding block. This is good for the handle. Now, working in the handle, I've got this round, obviously. It's wood, and I use that with, this is 80 grit. But when I start getting into the finishing sanding, I'm getting into the 120s and the 180 grit and the 220s and the 320s and the 400s and stuff like that. I will switch because I'm not removing that much material. I will switch from this solid wood device to a flexible one. In the past, I've used one of those kind of cushy rubber big erasers that you would use to clean your orbital disc sander disc, or else you can go to a hardware store and get a sanding sponge. It's supple and there's a sanding grid on it, but I use that for a sanding block so it follows contours, and that is beautiful for finish sanding. What other sanding methods do I have? Oh, let's look at this bowl in particular. Of course, I have my handy scribing tool. I can just zip it along a surface and get a line and sharp pencil. Keep your pencil sharp. I've got a pencil sharpener in my little bin there. What the heck was I going to talk about? I picked it. Oh. Can you see the pencil lines? Can you? Can you? Can you? In that way, I'm not going to put it on the bench, I'm going to do it this way. I can sand to the lines, and then I can either keep it angular, preference, where there's a bevel, which I like bevels. Sometimes on my bows you'll see sharp bevels, edges, but then I rounded it from this side. So along with, man, it's hard to find the right light to see that channel. That channel right there, it looks almost bone-like. You notice how bones will have those ridges for tendons and stuff like that? It's a subtle little thing. There it is. There's the money shot. It's all about style. What else should I say? Oh, you can see this is the riser that was glued onto this. Not perfect. It's hard to estimate when you sand down into something, the shape. You know, will those growth rings line up perfectly? They lined up pretty darn good. They're the same thickness, and I did a pretty good job of matching them. I can certainly disguise that joint, but it is what it is. I sometimes would take these and almost have a ridge down there, but really having it around, fitting into the pocket of your hand is the most comfortable. What other terms of endearment can I share? I do like that ridge. It's about it. Now, Sean, you're probably watching this. I know that you are, because I just Gmailed you. Gmailed. I might ask you again. I'll probably do it my standard way with like the grooves in there, but the original bows, going back in time, were kind of pointed roundy with then either a buildup of sinew at the end, which is kind of hard to work with really, so I wouldn't do that. But it would look really cool. I've got some horn, buffalo horn. That'd be cool to have it kind of rounded here. A buffalo horn stopper for the string, and then sinew on the end. or kind of sinew holding it down. A wrap, so it's not disguising a horn, just kind of centered, glued down with a little sinew accent, as it were. Well, show me your war face. Anyway, that's all. I have muttered to myself long enough. Might shave today. This makes me look old. Older than my 35 years.